now hear from my friend Seth about probably the most hopeful aspect of this whole thing, which is how we can actually start to repair the climate. Seth?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Quentin. Well, it is an honor to be here today and to partake in this Cambridge Climate Congress. And I mean, what is set up to say this is the most hopeful thing? I mean, come on. I mean, it's all hopeful. The fact that we're all here is hopeful, okay? I mean, don't put all the hope on me, but this is a hopeful message. My name is Seth Itzkan, and I am the co-founder with my colleague Carl Tiedemann, who's here, of Soil for Climate. And this is a nonprofit that advocates for soil as a climate solution. And as you will see, soil is an excellent ally in the climate movement. And with our friends in the emissions reduction strategies, we believe that there is great promise to ultimately help stop and reverse global warming. So this is a hopeful message. Now, I actually have a timer, which I'm going to turn on right now. Okay. So the very first thing that I want to show you, though, is the image we just saw of the Earth. And what I want you to think of this quickly is just in terms of holism, that the climate is a function of the entire ecosystem of the planet, not just any particular parts, and not just of the human impact, although of course the human impact is obviously important. There are various ways that humans do impact it. One is through emissions, as we know, but also through land management. Land management is an important part of how we're impacting climate, for the worse or for the better. We want to focus on the better here. Going to the next slide. So just this picture I like because it's just so obvious the relationship between the forest and the weather. And biology is a big part of creating climate and of creating weather, in this case evapotranspiration. So as the trees expire water, that creates rain, that creates winds that bring in moisture from the oceans, and so there's the whole picture of how we manage and restore ecosystems. The next slide I love, and if you only remember one thing from this presentation, remember this slide. This is from an exhibit at the U.S. Botanical Society called Expose the Secret Life of Roots. And what you're seeing here, it's really fascinating. They grew prairie grasses in tubes. And you can see the length of those root systems, and they're even folded at the bottom. They would even be longer by 3 or 4 feet more. And then, so those are actual plants and roots being held on little, wires in front of a cross-sectional photograph. But this is a climate story right here. This is where prodigious amounts of carbon are held, is in grassland soils around the world, well, in soils around the world, but predominantly in grassland soils. And this is our opportunity, because so much of this carbon has been lost, which has contributed to climate change over millennia. So climate change really began about 15,000 years ago, when humans began killing the megafauna, the large mammals that were on the prairie, and then with the agriculture and turning up the prairie. But this is now where we have opportunity where there's hope. And just quickly in the next slide, what you want to see here on this side where it says soil 2300, that's saying there's 2300 gigatons of carbon in soil. And then you see where it says plant biomass 550. So that's over 4 times as much carbon in soil as in all plant biomass. So even though you saw the picture of the tree, and trees and biomass are obviously essential to getting the carbon into the soil, where the game is really being played with carbon is in the soil itself. This slide is just a sort of a simpler version of the one you just saw in terms of sort of fluxes and flows. The bottom bigger circle is the source. We talk about sources and sinks. It says 8.9 on the slide. It's closer to 10 now. That's gigatons of carbon added to the atmosphere per year. And there are only 3 sinks. And 2 of them are detrimental, the atmosphere and the oceans. But one of them is positive, is the terrestrial sink or soils. That's where we want the carbon to go. And so the entire focus of 90% of the climate movement, if you will, is on reducing the source, which is a good thing. We have to do it. But the soil for climate part of the movement that I'm working on with my colleagues is to expand the terrestrial sink. And eventually, the sink has to become bigger than the source if we're actually going to go down, and I believe we can. Now, there's a problem that you heard it alluded to before in terms of how bad things really are, and that is that even if we did just stop the source, the warming continues for another 1,000 years at least. That's when they stop running the programs. This is from a paper by Susan Solomon, 2009. And she introduced the term irreversible. So that's the first time that term showed up in peer-reviewed literature. And what she shows here is that even if you stop the top, the top left graph shows CO2 parts per million. We're already at 400. So she's saying that even if you just stop, if you get to 450 and just stop, the warming and thermal expansion continues. So that's not even good enough. So 90% of the climate movement, all of which is essential to stop emissions, isn't even good enough. Other people talk about tipping points. So we need a drawdown solution. And in 2013, the IPCC said a large fraction of anthropogenic climate change resulting from CO2 emissions is irreversible. So they're using Susan Solomon's language on a multi-century to millennial scale, except in the case of a large net removal of CO2 from the atmosphere over a sustained period. Now, this is the interactive part of the presentation. Where do you think that large net removal of CO2 is going to go? Soil, good. Very good, okay. So now you all get A's. Next slide. So soil is where we see the large net removal, and you literally can see it. That is the reason why soil is dark, is because that's the color of soil organic compounds. Otherwise, it would be sand or clay. So you literally can see it. You can see the solution. There are many innovative ways to restore soil carbon. I will just go through these quickly, of course, but reforestation is essential. They're all essential. All the ways I'm going to show you are essential. This means sort of organics, not using the chemicals that destroy soil. Different types of agricultural method. In this case, it's called cover cropping. Also non-till, non-plowing, so that the life in the soil is not destroyed. Excuse me. Biochar is a very important sort of emerging solution. This is a form of elemental carbon that's created by burning biomass in a low oxygen, high temperature kiln. And it forms a very stable form of carbon, so it doesn't become part of the transient cycle anymore. It actually can stay in the soil for centuries to millennia. And here's examples from the Amazon basin. It's called Terra Preta. There were civilizations there that were doing this. This carbon is over 1,000 years old. So it's a very stable form of carbon to put in the soil. Another method, okay, good, thank you. Another method is regenerative grazing, also called planned grazing. It's a form of livestock management that restores the grasslands and the savannas to their original health, using a methodology that the megafauna co-evolved with in those ecosystems. And this is a very important methodology because grasslands and savannas are such a large part of the planet. And some studies are being done now on this. It's also called AMP. You'll see there, that stands for adaptive multi-paddock grazing. And I was interested in this technique, so I went to Zimbabwe, where it originated, 3 times between 2011 and 2014. And you can, oh, I'm sorry, next slide. You can see in this picture what this land used to look like and how it's been so significantly restored. So these pictures of the depleted, desertified area, and then that nice picture of me there, that's the same spot. It's been restored with this type of regenerative grazing process. And of course, when you get the plants, you get the roots, and you get the carbon. This methodology has been studied. This is a new paper in the Journal of Science and Water Conservation by Richard Teague at Texas A&M University. And what he shows is with a combination of what he called AMP, or adaptive multi-paddock grazing, and conservation cropping, and North America alone could draw down 1.2 gigatons of carbon per year. That's 20% of all global emissions. So it is possible, like I said, to significantly expand the sink while we also have to reduce the source. But so this is a good news story. And there are some very exciting initiatives that are evolving now. France has put forward the 4 per 1,000 soil carbon initiative, which calls on countries to increase soil organic carbon by 0.4% per year. That doesn't sound like much, but actually very good soil might have 5% soil carbon is good. So that's actually a significant amount. There are some interesting federal and state programs beginning to come forward now. 2 different state programs, Vermont and California, and then there's a U.S. House of Representatives bill. I don't have time to get into it, but these things are coming down the pike. There's a citizen movement called People for Soil. We're Soil for Climate, so there's some overlap, but that's exciting. And then the whole thing about so what can a place like Cambridge do? And so obviously there's research, a hub of intellectual activity. There's the buying power to buy products and services that are regenerative. There are municipal projects like the City Tree Project that Quentin is working on. And then there's individual action like what John Pitkin is doing with his biochar offset, which is brilliant. And then finally, I think the city itself, I don't know if there's any officials still here, but if the city could sign on to this 4 per 1,000 initiative, that would be very symbolic. They might be one of the first cities to do that. So our organization is helping to promote this message, Soil for Climate, and we're literally taking a page out of the 350.org playbook of trying to turn it into a meme. So here I am with Bill McKibben, the founder of 350.org. Now, it may appear that this picture is out of focus, but actually it's in focus, and Bill and I are just fuzzy people. Now, here are some other people who aren't fuzzy, and just want to show that all over the world, this is beginning to take hold now. Oh, hang on a second. My timer is saying, go away, go away. Okay. All right. So anyway, so it's a movement, and people are really getting into it, which is exciting. And so in addition to the science that I just did, we also kind of want to be upbeat and have like the arts and music. Every movement has to have a song, right? So actually, myself and Cambridge-based singer-songwriter Kevin O'Connor, he lives right down the street, we co-wrote a song called Brand New Sky, and we made a music video for it. And I want to play it for you now. It's only 2.5 minutes. And it's a simple, catchy song. Now, the chorus comes up 3 times. And after you hear the chorus, you'll know it. So I encourage you to feel free to sing along on the second and third versions of the chorus. So whenever you want to feel comfortable starting that. Yeah.
Think of a world where everyone cares about the land that everyone shares. Think of the soil that's under your feet and what it needs to make it complete. Now there is life.